Welcome everyone to the Thursday Thrive and Drive, powered by Next Step Collective, helping you make your next step your best step. We're your hosts. I'm Nikki Mills.
And I'm Gina Watts, and we're so glad that you are joining us for this conversation. Because let's be honest, we have all been in meetings that should have been an email.
Oh, right. There's nothing worse than sitting in a meeting, I think, that feels just like absolute wasted time. It's just a terrible experience. But we believe very, very strongly that meetings don't have to be a waste of time. We believe that when they're done well, they can be energizing and, yes, even fun.
So today we're talking about how to turn meetings from dull to dynamic and giving you practical strategies that we've used over the last 9 years of working together. We facilitated meetings with just a couple of people and meetings with hundreds.
For sure. So, when we think about planning meetings, we like to start by asking, why are we having this meeting? And if that's a question you can't answer directly, then don't have the meeting. Meetings should have a purpose, right? It could be to collaborate, it could be to make a decision, it could be to brainstorm together, it could just to make sure you have alignment on the work that you're doing. But meetings should not just have a calendar spot. Like, don't meet just for the sake of meeting.
We value productive time, and I'm sure you do too, but maybe the ways that you're doing that don't show it. The ways that you're having meetings or scheduling meetings don't show that. It should be productive time, not just time spent. The best meetings move something forward. And if people leave a meeting unclear, unmotivated, or disengaged, that's a red flag. And it's something it's telling you that there needs to be a shift.
For sure. So think about the purpose of your meeting. So if you're training and you're teaching something new, think about ways that you can have people engage. And you're going to have a variety of ways that people like to do that depending on who's in your meeting. Some people are going to be more contemplative and want that time to reflect. Others are going to want to, engage and value having dialogue with you. Some people value movement, getting up and being able to move around the space together. So the time that you put into sort of crafting your agenda and thinking about who's going to be in that space with you, it seems like a lot of time preparing, but it's time well spent and will help your meeting flow better.
So Nikki and I, as co-workers and co-leaders for an employer, like not the work that we get to do together through Aretta Lane, but working together for an employer, we have some weekly staff meetings where the purpose is to provide updates, to go from working in the organization or business to working on the organization or business, right? So these meetings are very clearly structured. People know what to expect. They know that we are going to hold them accountable and that they should be holding themselves accountable too, as well as peer-to-peer accountability. And we have a great space to engage and interact with each other. So, we're also adopters of traction. If you've never heard of traction or EOS, I encourage you to look it up. Gina Wickman is the author. But if you would like to learn more about that, that actually like revolutionized the way we think about productivity, about the way we think about our staffing and our meeting structure, and we can help it revolutionize the way that you think too.
For sure. So let's talk about things that make an engaging meeting, things that make meetings dynamic, that make them energetic. One big one that we both value, any meeting that we run has interaction. Like we
Yes.
really value ways for people to engage, not just sit and listen. We really like to have opportunities for people to engage with the content, with us and with each other. So Gina, why don't you talk about just some of the ways that we incorporate interaction into our space?
For sure. So some of our go-tos are what we call table talk. So we give a prompt and people at their tables, whether virtually or in person, have space to talk about something that we just presented to them or had in front of them, or maybe it's something that we're working on together. Um, We also have live polls. So there are so many different platforms that allow you to use live polls, whether it's for free or for a fee, but you can make your experience with your team interactive. Let me pause here for a second, because I think sometimes what happens is for those of you that have been leading for a long time, whether it's a smaller group of people or hundreds or thousands, you tend to think about doing things in a dynamic way when you think about a presentation or a workshop or facilitating an event. Your regular staff meetings deserve that energy too. That's how you keep staff engaged. That's how you keep staff wanting more. That's how you keep staff loyal, to be honest. They know that they can trust you, that you care that much about the day to day or the mundane. So it doesn't have to be a show or a performance, but it should be engaging or interactive. We also do open questions to the room or ask folks to write down ideas on chart paper. Nikki and I are known for having whiteboard sessions or walking around with our large post-it board and chart markers. Like that's how we do our meetings and events. And so, yeah, you don't want people sitting silently for 45 minutes. You want them moving, you want them sharing, you want them thinking, you want to create a space where you're bringing out the best in them. And in
Mhm.
turn, it's going to serve the organization well as that individual staff member and that team.
For sure. Even, Gina talked about we do this with a small group of people to hundreds of people. We're known in large groups to take that large group and break them into smaller groups. That helps facilitate opportunities for interaction. So a lot of times we'll put chart paper up around a room, get people up out of their seats, moving, dialoguing. It builds energy in the room. It keeps your content from feeling kind of stale or potentially kind of dull. Recently we have an annual planning meeting every year where we have like 15 teams in the room doing different kinds of work, still outward mission focused work, but different things. And one way that we sort of get everybody on the same page to get engaged in talking about annual planning is have them get up and answer questions that we've put around the room on chart paper. It could be, about thinking about their work, thinking about things that they want to continue, maybe questions that they have, but it really gets the energy moving as we sort of orient everybody around the same goal for our meeting.
So good, Nick. So good. Um, so when we think about the engagement part, right? Sometimes I think some folks could be hearing like, "Oh, you guys are like putting on like a little show every time." No, we're not doing all that. Like this is kind of just our adopted way of leading. It's our adopted way. And if you read a book like Traction, or want to adopt that system, or there are several other authors and leaders who will tell you the same thing. It's not just about the presentation and the performance. What it's about is also the actual practicality, right? That's 3 P's for you. It's not about the presentation or performance, but it's also about the practicality. You don't want to just talk about tools. You want to create them with people in the room. You want to make sure that there's buy-in and that there's systems to this important work that you're doing. So give them a chance to make something that they'll actually use. In a recent workshop, we talked about a communication schedule that we created. We passed out examples of what we were talking about, and then we gave folks time to customize it and create their own in real time, and they could get our feedback immediately. And so that's something that we would do not just in a workshop. We also do it with the teams that we've led together or in other spaces when we're consulting and walking with people. It's not just as a leader, you are sharing and you're giving directives in the doing, you're also inviting people in to help with the doing. Now here's the thing. You need to have direction and you need to give it with clarity, but there also has to be space for people to be a part of it. I hope that's making sense for you. So oftentimes, when folks are in the room, they're learning just as much from each other as they do from you as the leader. So you want to pull out the expertise in the room. You want to provide space for folks to share. And like I said, that structure is what you give. You give the structure with space to practice, with a directive at the beginning, but everybody's contributing and connecting. So don't be afraid to allow space for folks to share. If you do so with intentionality and with clear structure, it will still be a productive meeting. Because you don't also want to give so much space that you get off track and people are talking about things that are important. That's another tool that we will tell you about in maybe a future time. We talk about a parking lot, right? If people have different ideas, tell them put in a parking lot and we'll get to it at the appropriate time.
For sure. It's so, so good. Another thing that we like are visuals. Gina and I are both visual people, and so a lot of times we have visual cues around the room. And listen, listen, listen. We love a good slide deck just as much as anyone. Little tip, when you use slides, use them sparingly. Not everything has to go up on a slide. So we like to use slides. We like to make them pop and have great color and have great, pictures and images. We use minimal words because let's be real, the minute that you put a whole bunch of words up on a slide, not one person is listening to what you're saying. They're distracted, they're reading the slide. Let them add accent to what you're already saying. Right? So great images that people will remember, maybe a word or a phrase, but don't overwhelm your slides because ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody wants to read all that anyway. Also we talked about chart paper around the room. We'll put other things around the room too. Sometimes, we did a youth workshop not too long ago where we put inspirational quotes around the room. Just something to sort of set the tone as people are coming in and they're like, oh, look at that. I wonder what we're going to talk about. And those visual cues, can be helpful. Gina talked about the parking lot. That's another thing that we love to do is to have it up in the room, put your questions up there, frame the meeting. Like you're going to have questions, write them down. We'll get to them later. And so, yeah, visual cues around the room. It doesn't have to just be chart paper. Quotes, pictures are really helpful as well.
That's good. And finally, don't underestimate the power of music. We often play music at the start during transitions and even at the end to close things out. It sets the tone and keeps the energy up. I mean, we've done meetings where the playlist got just as many compliments as the content. So it really does matter. And if you're someone that's like, I'm not really like a music buff and like I don't know that people would like the music that I like, that's another way to get people engaged. If you're working with a team, you could poll people in a quick little email or Teams message or Google Chat, however, whatever platform you guys use, but you can easily ask folks like, hey, what's one of your favorite songs? And incorporate it into a playlist. Now, obviously, you're probably going to need to have boundaries and guidelines as far as appropriateness and, types of words that are used in the content of a song. But the reality is, because you're still in a professional environment. But the reality is like the more that people feel included and a part of, in even those simple ways, the better their experiences are going to be in these meetings. So let's talk about how you lead a meeting. We've talked to you about the things, right? The things that you should do to lead a meeting well, but how you lead your meeting is just as important. Your presence as a facilitator or a leader really shapes the tone. So if you're excited, prepared, and clear, your energy spreads. But if you're monotone and reading from a slide deck, people check out. Nikki and I like to create space where people know their voice matters. And that means we ask open-ended questions, we affirm contributions, and sometimes we even hand the mic over to participants.
I think also something that is helpful is to normalize movement. We've talked about getting participants up and moving around the room, but also when we facilitate, I know I can't stand still. It's impossible for me. I also lose interest when somebody just gets stuck behind like a podium, right? Or never moves around. Moving around keeps people sort of interested and engaged in what you're doing. So, we may be sitting and we'll stand up and we'll walk around or we'll go scribe on the wall and write down things that people are saying. It just keeps people's interest, I think sort of peaked and out of that like sit and get kind of rut where you're just sitting. It's like people are going to be as engaged as you are. And also I think, when we start a meeting, we let people know that we are interactive facilitators. Like you should expect when we start a meeting, we're telling people expect a dialogue, expect to get up and move. This is not just going to be a space where you're just sitting and listening, and people kind of lean in like, oh, okay, like this is going to be a different kind of a meeting or a really fun meeting. And again, their engagement will be, they're going to be as engaged as you are.
Yep. Nick, as you were talking, I was also thinking about like the people that are watching this and thinking like, but that's not who I am. Like
Hmm.
I'm not a person who walks around, or I'm not a person who likes music, or I just need to get through it because it's a part of my job. And for those of you that are watching this and thinking like there is no way, like I am not one to do that. You have to find the thing that makes you a dynamic meeting facilitator. Like we're outlining for you things that have worked for us.
Hmm.
And I think that even somebody who is completely the opposite of our personalities, you could still learn from what you're getting in this conversation and identify like where on the spectrum do I fall and how do I adapt some of these great ideas that these ladies are sharing with me? Like how do I adapt? You know, one thing is that um you identify somebody on your team that maybe likes to lead meetings, that maybe is great from the front. Maybe they're even an interrupter or a disruptor that needs a little direction. And if you gave them the structure and the outline of how to lead well, and you explain to folks that maybe there's no change in their job and there's no like, this is just something that you're asking them to lead out. And you tell them that too behind the scenes before they start doing it. There are just so many ways that you can um, lead dynamic meetings, even if you yourself would say, you know what, I'm not that person, and it's hard for me to get up in front of people. And you can also reach out to us because we can help you think about those ways too.
For sure. For sure. And tag teaming too is fun because a lot of
Yeah.
times Gina and I will do meetings together because while we do a lot of things similar, a lot of these strategies we're sharing with you, we both use. She's also uniquely her and I'm uniquely me. And so like having different people in front can also, I think, keep a meeting engaging. If you're listening to this and you're thinking like, this is all great, this is a lot of information, but like, where do I start? Like bring it down to some practical steps for me. Here are just a few practical things from what we're sharing that may help you as you think about how to have your meetings be an engaging and energizing space. So one, start with a clear purpose. You know, we said in the beginning, don't meet just to meet. Like, what is the purpose of your meeting? Think about what your goal is and what you want to accomplish, and plan those interactive moments. You know, don't just wing those. The more time you put into thinking into how to have people interact, like, oh, in this space, I'm going to ask questions, or in this moment, you know, I'm going to have people dialogue together. Think about
Mm-hmm.
those ahead of time. Make notes in your meeting notes, and that will help those moments flow. You know, those visuals and music things we talked about can really help with the environment. Again, you have to find what works for you, but think
Mm-hmm.
about those ahead of time. What can you
Mm-hmm.
do to make the
Mm-hmm.
environment engaging? And then build in time for real engagement. So that takes time. So if you're allowing time for, you know, oh, this is going to be a table talk where people share at their tables, give a little bit of time. Make sure you have time in your agenda to allow for those interactive moments throughout your meeting.
It's great, Nick. And I think, you know, maybe the most important one, something that kind of can be hard if we make it hard, but it's so necessary, is to ask for feedback. You know,
Yes.
in our various meetings, again, meeting is the oftentimes the mundane parts of work, right? But we'll often ask, what worked in today's meeting? Or what would make this more helpful next time? That keeps us growing, that keeps us present to the needs of those that we're leading, that helps us to become better in our jobs, right? In our work and the spaces that we hold for people. So, asking for feedback is super important. You know, meetings don't have to drain people, they can
Mhm.
inspire people, they can connect, and they can move things forward, but only if we're intentional. Now, here's the thing, friends. John Maxwell, he says, consistency compounds. If you do this one time, it'll feel like a sit and get of somebody inspiring us for a moment. And then the next time and the next time after that, you don't do it again that way. And folks are going to think that that one time you did it was fake, was
Yeah.
phony, wasn't real. And they're going to not be inspired and not be encouraged. They're actually just going to be like, okay, I guess that was for this time.
Yeah.
Be consistent. Yes, be intentional. Yes, have the structure. Yes, do some of these things that we're sharing with you to do, but be consistent. Do it
Mhm.
often, do it regularly. If people know that they can depend on you to show up this way, they know that it's a safe space for them to show up regularly.
So, so good. Consistency. Write that one down, you guys. Listen, we just want to say thank you for hanging out with us for a little bit today. We hope that this has been helpful and that this, these tips and these strategies that we've shared are, helpful in just helping you to rethink or just strengthen how you're doing your meetings. And so, again, like Gina said, let's make meetings something that people look forward to, yourself included. Right? Not just the people who are coming, but something that you look forward to having, and not have meetings be something that we dread.
And hey, if you want to try one of these ideas, why don't you tag us or leave a note in the comments because we'd love to hear how it went. That's a wrap on this Thursday's Thrive and Drive, powered by Next Step Collective. Now go make your next step your best step, and we'll see you next time.